Hey, Sub2ers. My name is William Tingle of Sub2deals.com. I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub2 Deal Show, where we talk about all things subject to. Now, occasionally we will cover other real estate investing topics, but it will always be something to help you with your real estate investing business. Today, I have Mark Cool with us. Mark is actually a coaching student that we've got in the Facebook Sub2 Deals group coaching. Mark is in North Carolina in the Raleigh area in a really small town called Efland. And he just got his first Sub2 deal. So I wanted to get him in and talk to him about how he did it and, all the steps involved. Because, when you're first getting started, a lot of people really get caught up in, gosh, how to use a land trust. Do I have the perfect attorney? What if I can't find a buyer? How do I sign this up? How do I explain it to the seller? And I got to tell you, Mark, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, going through this process with you, I think you screwed up pretty much everything that could be messed up. But man, you recovered quickly on everything and got a pretty nice payday there when you put your buyer in. So we want to talk about that. Mark just got started really investing. He'd done a couple of deals in the past, but really just buckled down and really got started in May of this year and has already got a slam dunk deal and did that. So we're going to talk about that today. So Mark, welcome to the Sub2 Deal Show.
Thanks, William. It's great to be here. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, man,
I've gotten a ton of value from listening to your podcast, so it's fun to be on here.
So much. Glad to hear that. That's what we try to do, is just put out some good content. We're not the most polished, but we do try to deliver some good content. So, well, tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us about what you did before investing. I mean, who is Mark? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've done a lot of stuff. I've always been interested in real estate. When I was in my 20s, I bought one of those courses off a late night show with a buddy of mine, and we tried to do stuff. And we ended up buying a duplex that we rented half out and lived in and made a little money when we sold it, but that was about as far as we got. But and I've been a contractor. So, I came across a couple of houses in the course of being a remodeling contractor, and I bought a duplex and held that for a little while and made a profit on it. And I was actually licensed in California in the 1990s, 90s, and did a few, I was also did some mortgage loan refinance stuff, just very briefly. So I had always dabbled in it on and off, but most of my adult life, I've been an artist. I've been a musician, performing songwriter, visual artist. I've done a lot of that stuff. And that's what I've done the last 7 years is I built a couple of businesses around the art that I make, folk art and reclaimed wood furnishings. And I have a passion for golf, and I have a business selling golf art online as well. And I've done that all out here in my little country place that's 3 acres in the woods. And it's a place I bought with owner financing. I found this property and I wanted a place to have my workshop, and I called up the guy who was selling it. I found it on Craigslist, which is where I prospect a lot. And I asked him if he would be willing to finance it, and he was. And so I bought it with very little down and just made monthly payments and had a 5-year balloon and paid it off a couple of years ago. But so I've dabbled, but then just now I got into it a few months ago, inspired by my son, who's been really crushing it wholesaling. And then I found Sub2 and got super excited about that. Just like, because I'm an artist and always creative in my life, creative financing, it just really appeals to me to be finding like this deal that we'll talk about. There were tons of twists and turns and forks in the road in this thing. And I had no idea what to do half the time, but that's half the fun of it, was figuring it out on the fly, sort of having that energy of like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And it was stressful and scary, but it's also, that's the rewarding part of it, is that creativity.
I know that's something that we talk about actually in the group from time to time. And I actually wrote an article on Ready, Fire, Aim. And I know you've made that pretty much your hashtag on all of your
That was my credo. Yeah. Listen to that podcast that you posted about it. And I just thought, yeah, that's just a great way to think about it. And it is kind of the way I do things. I'd rather just jump in and then figure it out than I don't want to be into that analysis paralysis stuff of like, oh, I got to get all my ducks in a row and get everything right. Now, mind you, there was a ton of stress involved in figuring everything out on the fly once I already had a contract in hand and was moving forward. And I felt like I had more deadlines than I did because I had a house in foreclosure with an auction that was postponed, but still I didn't know when it could be rescheduled anytime. There were arrears, there were a lot of things like that felt like a lot of pressure to figure out. I didn't know who my lawyer was going to be, who's going to close it. I didn't know half the stuff. As you know, I'm still figuring out the insurance portion of it. I'll get that buttoned up this week, I hope. But it was a lot of figuring stuff out on the fly, a lot of texting you and or messaging you on the group and asking other people in the group for help, or anybody I could think of to ask for help, just asking for help a lot, which, I learned so much so fast in the process of doing one deal. I think it's way more than I would have learned if I had sat there and analyzed and tried to figure out every last detail, over 6 months.
Right. Well, we see that happen so much, especially with people getting started, is that they want to learn forever. And, I agree. You need to know some things. But, in lieu of knowing everything, if you just make sure that you have the people in place that you can reach out to, whether that's other investors that you trust in your area, whether it's a coach that you hire, whatever it may be, as long as you've got someone there that you can go, hey, I'm stuck, help me, and they'll come through for you. You don't have to wait until you know everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because,
Finding you and your coaching group and just the public group, all of it was a big boon for me in that realm, because in the investor community, all the investors have a variety of knowledge and experience. And so you can ask one question, get 10 different answers. And so, that's one of the things I really value about your work, is just that I know you've been doing it for 20 years and pretty much doing the same thing. And so it's like, having that as a fallback has been nice for sure. I didn't mean to be, total plug for your coaching, but it was a valuable thing for me to connect with you when I did.
We appreciate that. But, you were great to watch, like I said, because you just said, hey, I'm going for it. And you did. You didn't have an insurance guy. You didn't have a title company. You didn't have an attorney. I mean, you didn't have anything. You just
I didn't know what contracts I was
using.
I didn't know. I didn't know what a trust was.
And so that was fantastic. That was great. And the outcome too. I mean, like I said, you just kept after it and just made it happen. And so it was so being so proud of you to watch you go out there and say, okay, I got this thing under contract. Now I got buyers fighting over it, and they've all got, pockets full of money, and they all want my house. And I just thought that.
Yeah. And I had people tell me to walk away from that deal, that there was no deal there. It was no good. Don't spend 30 to make 20, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I just knew in my gut there was a deal. Plus I'm brand new. So I'm, in the last 3 months, I've contacted every seller on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and anywhere else I could find sellers just to get in the mix. And so I've talked to people, I'm talking to a guy in Greensboro who's got 10 properties. He's a lifetime investor who's selling them for around 2 million. That might come through. I was talking to everybody about everything all the time. So when I got a hold of this one and I was like, I can get this under contract, I'm like, I'm getting it under contract. I know there's money here. I'm going to figure it out, and that was right. Just also the desire to not be on the sidelines, but to be in the game.
That is a great, great attitude. I mean, you're going to be super successful with that. I mean, just like I said, it was just a pleasure to have you in the group and see the things that you went through and that you just dealt with, and that's the way life is, and you can either do that in a job making, $14 an hour because you're still going to have those struggles, or you can do it, where you can collect a 5-figure paycheck in a few weeks. I mean, what would you rather do? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us about this deal. This is the one we're talking about here. So the first deal, that's why, we got you here to talk to you today. Newbie gets started in May, and a couple of months later, he's got this deal under contract. Some people have told him walk away. Some people said, yeah, there might be something here. You get it under contract. Tell us all about it, start to finish. How did you find it? And everything.
Well, like I said, one of the things I've been doing, because I am I was starting from ground zero basically. So lead generation was something to figure out. So one of the things I was doing is every day on Craigslist, every day on Facebook Marketplace, just seeing what was there. So there are a few for sale by owners, and there are a lot of wholesalers, and there are a bunch of stuff in between. But I was just reaching out to everybody because that was a way I could be talking to sellers right away. So I found this deal on Craigslist, and it was posted by a wholesaler. And we had some text communication. This was a guy I dealt with on another property, and I found that he wasn't going to talk to me on the phone. It seemed like he just texted. So we texted back and forth about it. He said, yeah, there might be a subject to there. And I said, well, great. That's the kind of thing I want to do. And then he gave me tell me if I get too detailed, but he gave me the lockbox to the house. I went in and looked at the house, took a couple videos, and then I got back to him and I said, yeah, let's see what we can do with this. Can you give me the contact information from the seller? And he said, yeah, sure. And somewhere in there, I'd said, what do you want out of this? And he said, well, just a referral fee, not much, whatever you think is fair. So I said, great. And then when I reached out to him to get the contact information for the seller, he didn't answer me, just didn't answer me. And so I let it go for a little while, reached out to him a couple of times. Finally, I said, there's a deal here. This guy's not answering me. I'm going to try and get directly in touch with the seller. So I went and skip traced the seller on I think I used True People Search, which is a free skip trace. I don't know. I used one of the services. I got his numbers. I texted him and I said, hey, Mr. Rogers, I've been talking to Cam, who's a wholesaler, about your property, and hadn't heard back from him, and just checking to see if you're still selling. And this was over text. And he said, yeah, I actually reached back out to you because I had met the seller's son in the driveway of the house when I went to look at it. And turned out he played basketball with my son, or in the same school my son played at. We talked a little bit. They had a dog they were keeping in the backyard. So he was there to make sure I wasn't coming to mess with the dog. But so I felt like I had some rapport there already. And so then I reached out to the seller originally on like Facebook or email, however I think I found him on Facebook. And he said, when I finally got him on the text, he said, yeah, I had reached back out to you, but somehow I'd missed him. Anyway, we texted back and forth a little bit. We got on the phone. He wanted to do it. I found out he wanted to still sell it. And his main thing was he didn't want a foreclosure on his record. The house is vacant. He's out of the house. He just wanted to wash his hands of it, feel free of it, and not have a foreclosure. So
he actually moved out of state, hadn't he?
He's still in the same town. Long story with this guy, we don't even want to go into the ex-wife, and she didn't make the payments, and he had some other family stuff going on. He just needed this one thing off his plate. Really good guy. And so he said, well, I'm going to send your information to Asha, who I guess is the boss of the other wholesaler. And she's reaching out to me, talking to me, asking me about what my goal is for the property, what I want to do, what my interest is. And I'm going back to her going, what's your interest here? Because, from what I understand from the seller, the contract is expired, but the wholesaler is still trying to come back in, acting like they have an interest. So finally I stopped communicating with her, and I was just like, I'm trying to be in integrity and everything, but at the same time, they're being weird, and I'm just going to deal directly with the seller right now. So right about then, I think is when I joined up with your coaching group, and I grabbed, I think I had some Sub2 contracts, and I knew that I could take any purchase contract and just write in Sub2, but I wanted to go sign things with him. So I think I took yours and adapted it or whatever. And I went over and met with the seller at his house. And I just brought a one-page purchase agreement contract and a authorization to release loan information. And we signed those. We executed those two things. And we did it for the purchase price was the balance of the loan plus the arrears. And that was it. No cash beyond that. That was the purchase price. And then we got by your suggestion, William, we got the lender on the phone while we were at his kitchen table, just to see about doing a loan modification. And I guess he had talked to them prior about that. And he said that it was like a qualification, and he didn't want to go through the qualification process for whatever reason. So then I'm like, okay, So we talked to the lender was nice. The representative from the lender was nice, and we found out about what we had to do to handle the arrears, and talk to the whatever loss mitigation department and get an official letter of reinstatement. So handled that, left there, and so then I'm thinking I have to come up with 20 grand to cover the arrears, so it's just a matter of how much detail you want me to go into. I mean, I reached out, I got worried, and I was like, oh man, I need 20 grand and I don't know when this thing's going to be scheduled. So I reached out to friends and acquaintances trying to find $20,000.
I remember when you brought this deal to the coaching call and you had some concerns about that, and we discussed selling it and letting your buyer bring in the money to do all those things.
Right. And that was part of the thing is like, after I got it under contract, I still didn't know what the exit strategy was on it. I marketed it to investors, and I was, at this point, I'm just thinking like any payday is a good payday. This is my first deal. And I had one other thing under contract that didn't close for whatever reason prior to this, but like any payday on this is good. If I make $5 grand flipping it to an investor, I'm happy, right? It's just to get something under my belt. And so I marketed it to investors as a flip, and just I would have just sold my interest in the deal. I would have just assigned my subject to position. It was an assignable contract for, I think I advertised it for like, I don't know, $8,000 as a flip, and they could come in and it's just a matter of how much detail you want to do. The purchase price was the underlying loan was 144. The arrears ended up being around 20. So 164. The after repair value about 220, 225. So there's like 40,000 in equity, with 20 to 30,000 depending on how you do it in cosmetic and small repairs to the house. So when I bought it, I thought, well, I've got the skills, from my remodeling business. I could go in here and buff this thing out and then retail it. And but I was feeling pressure with not knowing when the foreclosure would happen. And then I thought, well, I could just get a quick check and try and flip it to investors. And then my brother has been talking, wanting to get into this too. And I bounced off him too at the same time. And he was like, well, why don't you just see if somebody will do it as is, or we talked about that as an option. So I ended up, the most successful marketing strategy that I had, because I wanted to implement your 3 profit center strategy of money up front, a margin on the monthly payments, and something on the back end. That's ideal. So, but I didn't want to do the work. I was like, I've done enough contracting stuff. So I'm going to sell this as a handyman special as is, and give that person a $20,000 built-in equity for them to do the repairs. So I marketed it actually more than 20,000. Yeah. 40,000. I marketed it at 187.5 and marketed a payment of $1,300. I knew the underlying payment was less than 1,100. So, and 1,300 was the rental rate for the area. So I figured I could get that. In hindsight, I probably could have gotten more, but this is another one. Talk about making mistakes. I probably could have sold
much money on the table on this deal.
I probably could have sold it for $220 and $1,450 a month. But the thing is, I got the thing done, right? And so what I did is I marketed it for $187, $1,300 a month, and I didn't tell anybody what the interest rate was. I just backed that out and knew it for myself if people asked. But so then I held an open house, and I did a 1-hour window because the first thing I did when I got it under contract is I went directly over there and put a sign in the yard for sale by owner, and put my phone number, and I put a smart line phone number, not my direct number, but and so I started getting calls, lots of calls on it. And then I put it also on Craigslist and on Facebook Marketplace. And I also put it on Craigslist in Spanish because I knew that this market, that potentially there would be people from the Hispanic population who might be buyers. So I did a 1-hour window for an open house. I had probably 20 people in there. I had 3 different people make me cash offers above my asking for the down payment on that day. So it was a great open house, and and then I couldn't figure out, then I had to ask your help again. You and Ronnie got on a call with me because I was like, somebody offered me $40,000 down. I was asking 20. I didn't say that with the terms. I was asking 25 down, 187.5, and 1,300 a month. So one guy offered me 40 down, one guy offered me 80 down, and another guy offered me the 25 down right off the bat. So I was saying, well, why wouldn't I take the 80,000 down? And then I had to get educated as to how the amortization tables wouldn't match up, and I could end up, you know, in a lurch if he closed out the deal too early, all that. So I ended up going with the $40,000 down guy, which made me more money up front. And he was solid, and he's a business owner, and I felt good about him from the start. So where do you want me?
The bottom line here on this is you bought the house basically for 144 plus 20 in arrears. So you paid 164 for the house.
Yeah.
Correct? You sold it for 187.
Yes.
Okay. Which on the surface looks like you'll make a $27,000 profit. Just take the 187 minus the 164, correct?
Right. Right.
Sorry, a $23,000 profit.
Yeah.
All right. And in your case, you took a $40,000 down payment from this guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So after you paid your 20 in arrears, you put 27,000 in your pocket. No.
I didn't pocket that. No, it was, well, if you figure 40 down and then the arrears, the mortgage company really piled on fees and stuff. It was ridiculous. When I thought it was 20, it ended up being 23 or something like that. So I ended up, what I pocketed when we closed was about 18.
Okay. So you walked away
still
with
great.
$18,000.
Yeah.
Okay. On a house you put not a nickel of your own money into.
That's true.
Okay. And every month you make a payment of how much?
I make about $200 in cash flow on it a month.
You make a payment of 11, you get about 13 back in.
Yeah.
But this is seller financing, so you really don't have any management cost or anything else. This is net profit to you.
Right. Yeah.
200 a month. And any indication if this guy's going to refinance pretty soon, or he's probably just going to ride it out? You wrote this thing on a 40-year note, didn't you?
No, that was another one of those things I didn't know until I did it. Here's another one of those silly newbie things, because you and I talked about this. Because I was trying to match initially, I was learning the stuff. I learned your system right around the time that I signed up for your group, right around when I locked this deal down. I was learning from other areas before that. So when I went in, I'm talking to the guy in the open house and they're asking me about the terms. I knew it was going to be 7% and the underlying loan's 4.5. I knew that that's what the payment came out to, but they're asking about the term. And I was trying to match the underlying loan to my owner financing loan and saying, well, it'll be about 27 years and 4 months, instead of going, now I know 40 years is like the protocol for this type of deal. So I ended up, to take the confusion out of it, after I caught up and figured out, I just put it at 30 years because that was easier for everybody to deal with than me trying to, than them going, well, why is it 28 years and 4 months or whatever it was? So just one of the multitude of mistakes I made in the process. And we could probably go through and just pick out a dozen mistakes easily.
I love this deal so much, Mark. I got to tell you.
30-year, and it's 4.5 versus 7. So, yeah, I'll make money on the back end. He's talking about 10 years to refi. So that's, I did the math, and I think if I kept it 10 years, I think I make somewhere in the range of 50,000 on this overall.
If he pays you $200 a month in cash flow,
that's
10
24.
years, that's another $24,000 in cash flow. And then, of course, your amortization at 27 years is going to be much greater at 4.5% than his 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just your down payment, your cash flow will be 42,000. So yeah, you're looking at over 50,000. In profit on that
if
deal.
It's 10 years.
And for something that you didn't have to have a nickel to do, I mean, how many of those can you afford to do every?
Now I'm beating the bushes trying to find more.
And the point here is, I'm not trying to beat you up in any way, Mark. I
know you're not. We're just having some fun with it.
I think what you did was great, but this was just such a, no pun intended, such a cool example of how you can go in and just know enough to be dangerous and make some serious money, and have things go wrong, and you just recover from it and just move forward and say, let's just keep this thing going. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's why it's so great. So you're looking at a $50,000 profit on this thing. You sold it too cheap. You didn't get your terms right. I mean, just on and on and on, and still, a good 5-figure profit. That's fantastic. It
Yeah.
really is. So you got a seller finance buyer in place, gave you a huge down payment. They're fixing up the house. The best thing in the world that could happen to you is 2 or 3 years from now, they've got it all fixed up and they decide to quit paying.
Yeah.
Just move on down the road.
I know.
Okay. So you got that one out of the way. It's tucked in. The file's in the drawer. You're just getting your checks now. So
Still
what are you
figuring out the
doing?
insurance.
Insurance. That's a good thing. I think you got in touch with a State Farm agent who's getting you hooked up.
I actually, it's a Liberty Mutual agent, but she's somebody I had known from leads groups years ago when I was in contracting, and yeah, so she's getting things sorted. I think
Okay.
she'll be my team person going forward, my insurance person.
That's great. Okay, so tell me, you're working on the next thing now. You're out there. You're trying to find your next deal. Maybe you've got your next deal under contract. We hadn't really talked in a couple of days. It's been the holiday. So what are you doing now to generate leads?
Well, it's kind of like regrouping at this point, because my approach was so scattershot initially, and I was just out there trying to make something happen. I think I told you I had one that I contracted and I thought I was going to flip it, and then I decided it was more work than I wanted to do, and then I tried to wholesale it, and I didn't sell it. I still might wholesale it, actually. The seller and I still have a good rapport, but the point of that was that I've been doing such a scattershot approach to lead generation to start with, and I was going to do flips, I was going to do wholesale, I was going to do Sub2, whatever, just whatever I could lock down, I was going to do it. And I was just out there, like I said, all over Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, signs in the yard, driving for dollars, anything I could do to just be talking to people and trying to make stuff happen. So now I've sort of regrouped, and after being in your group and like listening to the talk you and Ronnie did a little while back, I have sort of gotten some more structure into it, and I'm doing a more methodical approach, like your for sale by owner and Zillow approach of looking for the low hanging fruit, as Ronnie calls it, like the low equity, high motivation sellers on Zillow. I'm in the process of doing some mailing campaigns, and actually I was just making some calls before we got on this podcast, just trying to reach out to some of those people and see who wants to sell their house. So I'm doing that, but it doesn't mean I don't still look on Craigslist and do, when I see signs in the yard or run down houses, write down the addresses and look those up. So I'm doing a bunch of all that. And yeah, just working towards the next one.
Yeah, right. So Mark has been here sharing a ton of information with us. We're going to take just a quick break. And when we come back, Mark's going to talk a little bit about what his criteria is for a Sub2 deal. He's done his first one now. He knows what he's looking for. He's got a little bit better idea of the structure and everything. So he's going to share with you what his type of deal is, what he's typically doing. You guys stay with us. We'll be back in just a second.
The Sub2 Deals Show with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle. We'll be right back. Have you ever had a seller give you a house? It's a pretty awesome experience. If a seller wanted to give you a house today, would you know what needed to be done to make the deal happen? Would you like to learn how? The Ultimate Sub2 Guidebook will show you exactly what you need to get those deeds and sell those houses with seller financing. Join the thousands of other investors across the country who learned how to get the deed with the Ultimate Sub2 Guidebook. Get the Ultimate Sub2 Guidebook today at sub2deals.com. Back to the show, the Sub2 Deals Show, with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub2ers, we're back here today with Mark Kuhl. Mark is an investor in Eflin, North Carolina. That's such a small town, I can't even remember how to pronounce it. I think it's in the Raleigh sort of general area. Is that right?
Yeah, Raleigh, Durham area. Yeah.
And he's talking with us today. He's sharing with us his first Sub2 deal. Mark's a new investor. He just got started in May. and he's already took down a slam dunk deal and with a 5-figure payday. He's been sharing that with us. And now we're talking a little bit about, what he's looking for going forward in Sub2 type deals. So Mark, when you're evaluating a deal now, what are you looking for? What, as far as how to make money? I mean, I know we talked about the 3 profit centers. Is that kind of your model to go with going forward?
Yeah, I mean, now that I've been exposed to that and I've done one, that's all I want to do. It doesn't mean I won't do other stuff, but seeing your success with that model, and then seeing Ronnie, who also used the same approach, I'm real inspired by that. So that's my main focus at this point, and that's what I was saying before the break, is just sort of rather than being all over the place. Like my son's been doing wholesaling, so he had a list of people who, from his wholesale leads from his prospecting, that weren't willing to take a wholesale price, and so he passed those on to me. So I was just calling all those people, and just like trying to see who might want to do something, in the owner financing or subject to. A lot of them are too high equity to necessarily do subject to. But yeah, ideally I want to be doing more the low equity, high motivation subject to deals with the 3 profit centers, like you've been teaching, just because it makes the most sense for wealth building, and I just love it. I love the creativity of it. I mean, you said when you came back, Mark just did a slam dunk deal. That was anything but a slam dunk. That was, there were multiple days over the weeks there where I just felt like this is not going to happen. It's not going to work. I can't get this done. One obstacle after another. But that's part of the fun of it too, is figuring that stuff out. But yeah, so I'm just taking a page from your book, and like I said, from the episode y'all did, or I guess it was in the coaching group y'all did a talk about, how to sort of find the best prospects or best candidates for subject to, even thinking about VA loans and how people have less skin in the game on a VA loan, right? So I've been using Zillow and PropStream to find sellers who've been on the market for a long time, for sale by owners, people with low equity, like preferably less than 25% equity, and reaching out to those people to try and see if they want to sell their house on terms.
The typical VA that I find, if they finance a $200,000 house, they'll finance 210 because they're rolling closing costs and other stuff. They have very little to anything in it. So unless they're in a rapidly appreciating market, if they have to move in a year or two, which is common with a lot of these people in the Air Force or Army or whatever, they're not going to have enough money to pay a realtor. So they're very open to what we do.
Yeah, and that's what I actually have been targeting an area here in North Carolina near a military base, and just going through those. And there are a ton of VAs and some low equity. That's what I was calling before we got on here. I'm just, I'll be honest, like the pipeline thing that you talk about too, like just getting that last deal done, I was not paying attention to the pipeline because I was so focused on putting out fires and getting that deal done. I had an English as second language buyer. They had a realtor who didn't totally understand subject to, and was asking a lot of questions, and was kind of stirring the uncertainty portion of the deal on the buyer's end. So I had all that. So and the learning. So I wasn't prospecting as much as I had been up until I got that contract, and so now I'm back into like the daily building it up.
Yeah, you got to keep that marketing going all the time. So, so when you wrap something up, you've got something there available to be working on going forward. Yeah. I know it can be, like a juggler, having a lot, of balls in the air at the same time, trying to keep things going until especially when you're new, when you get a routine established of mailings that go out on certain days, or if you're texting, if you've got text, you scrape, you text, and that sort of thing. Yeah, it can be a little bit daunting. I know we've just recently moved to texting as a way to contact sellers. I resisted it for years and years, but I'm finding that it's easier to contact people in volume. You can text hundreds of people at a time, And of course, you'll get some text back that, tell you where to go and what to do with it when you get there. But by and large, I mean, most people are at least friendly and hey, we've sold it, or we're not open to something like this, or yeah, please call me as soon as possible. So I'm starting to like texting a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you doing much of that, or you said you're direct mailing and still cold calling?
Yeah, haven't gotten into the texting. I did sign up for one of those briefly, but I wasn't ramped up enough to do it in terms of just having a volume of leads to use. I'm still 3 months in, 4 months in. I'm still like ramping the whole thing up, I did just use the service Ronnie recommended, Citricato, and got a batch of leads from them. So, and my brother's working with me, and we're going through those, just trying to get, the cream of the crop list off of 1,000 lead list. And then, but yeah, I want to get into the texting, because I think you're right that, I've done a lot of cold calling, and you can waste a lot of time on the phone with people. And, Lord knows it's not fun to cold call. Like, it's a good exercise in building up, for me, just building up my courage and my mettle, as it were. But it's not the funnest activity in the world. So if I can get some people via text, and I think it's true that, like, I've heard this said, but it's also a generational thing. Like, if you're under 40, you're probably more likely to respond to a text than a phone call or even an email. And if you're elderly or maybe over 60, you might be more likely to respond to a piece of direct mail or a phone call. So I think it's important to hit all those channels of marketing.
Yeah, it is good to have a good mix, that's for sure. Well, tell me this, Mark. Let's I appreciate you sharing this deal with us today. I really, as soon as you got this thing wrapped up, I knew I wanted to talk to you about it on here and let everybody benefit from that. But if you could give a new investor just getting started some advice on what to do, what not to do, whatever the case may be, what would that be? What would you tell them?
Well, I like ready, fire, aim. I think that's a great credo to have starting out, is, connect with a network of investors or a mentor or somebody. Know that you have a little bit of a safety net maybe, but just talk to people. And I think just talk to people, because some of the people will get mad and annoyed or, impatient with you because they've been contacted by a lot of investors, but some will be nice too. And some of them want to sell you their house. And, but you can only get so much. You're always going to be learning. I think you can only get so much knowledge up front, and then you have to take some action and talk to people. And where deals are going to come from is talking to people, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Just learn enough to know how to get started and get out there and do it. And have someone, if you don't know everything or you feel like you don't know everything, just have somebody there that you can talk with about it. Local investors, friends that they're investors, or coach. Some people really frown on that. I see a lot of people in the groups on Facebook that like to bash gurus, they call them. I've never thought of myself as a guru. I teach a lot of people, and I've been doing it for a really long time. But it's just something that I enjoy to do. I have learned from a ton of gurus, whether it was Ron LeGrand or William Bronchick or any, and I say thank God for those gurus, because it wasn't for those guys, I'd still be working in the restaurant business probably. And, working hard every day to make in a year what I can make on one house deal. So I say thank God for them. Hire a teacher. Don't be afraid to do that. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Mark, thanks so much for being with us and sharing the information about your first deal and how you got started and what you're going to do going forward. We really appreciate you and love having you in the group. You're a student that's a lot of fun to work with, because you just get out there and do stuff and don't just ask questions all the time. So, which that's okay too, but get out there and do something, man. Make some money.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate being a part of the coaching group. It's been really valuable to me, and I really appreciate your teaching style and your knowledge, your generosity with your knowledge, and lack of pretension, and just it just really is a great fit for me. I feel like you're there when I need you. Your answers are clear and concise and knowledgeable, and you're really supportive. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate you, man. I do. Thanks again for being here with us today. Well,
pleasure.
Sub2ers, that is it for this episode of the Sub2 Deal Show podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode with a complete transcript at sub2podcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you would subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute, and it helps others discover the show. You can subscribe as well as leave a rating and review by visiting Apple Podcasts and just do a quick search for the Sub2 Deal Show. Finally, if you haven't yet, you can join our free Facebook Subject to group at sub2forum.com. You'll find lots more resources to help you grow your real estate investing business at sub2deals.com. So until next time, keep learning, keep talking to sellers, and you will buy some houses.